Check, check, check. Let's see how this sounds, apprenticeship listeners. Welcome to the Apprenticeship Diaries, where raw meets refined.
Let's be real, we're still working on refining.
What it took, what it takes, and the stories that are made.
Join us as we learn from professionals about how their stories began.
All right, the audio check sounded great today. Pardon the delay, as this podcast will be going out a little later on Monday the 7th. It's a pretty cool day, though, I will admit. It would be even cooler if it was like July 7, just because it would be 7/7. I have a thing for sevens. I'm not going to call the podcast 7, though. What I'm going to call the podcast today is Dropping Balls, because not last week, because I actually missed last week, hence the name. But the week before that, I called the podcast Juggling. This past couple weeks, I just feel like I've kind of dropped too many balls to rebound from, at least in one week. So I had to take 2. It was just a matter of doing a lot all at once. And really, I think, splicing myself way too thin. Actually, just wanted to share with you guys, I just got done doing a really awesome interview with the Reinventing the Tattoo podcast, and you can find that on YouTube. Just look up Reinventing the Tattoo. But basically, it was really awesome. They were shouting out that I was going to be doing 2 seminars at the Paradise Tattoo Gathering this year, which will be Gabe told me, I think he said the 12th through the 14th, I do believe, the 12th through the 14th. I could be absolutely wrong, but I think that that's correct. And it's a Thursday to Saturday or Sunday event, so it can't be that. I'll look it up. I'll post the actual dates. I do apologize, Gabe, but I'm going to be there. It's October, and it's regularly done at Jiminy Peak Mountain Resort. It's a beautiful location, especially around October, because typically speaking, most of the seasonal colors are coming out, all those beautiful fall colors. Lots of beautiful trees, East Coast feel, gorgeous, gorgeous location. It's like right past the Catskills. But getting back, I'm doing 2 seminars, one on how to be an attractive prospect for an apprenticeship. So I'll be giving away a seminar for that, and that'll be open for people to access. And then there's also going to be one that I am charging a little bit for. It's only going to be $30 a head. I think that's a good amount for the actual event. And the actual content of what I'm going to be sharing. It's going to be my consultation process. I mentioned that prior episodes that I would be doing that. It's all official now. I will be doing it. The 2 events, I believe that I called, it's so hard to reference. I called one going fishing or gone fishing. And then and that's the apprenticeship attractiveness one, like how to be the best bait for an apprenticeship and for a would-be mentor to, want to use or an attractive fish, or like using the best bait for attracting a mentor. I haven't fleshed it all out. I'm big about metaphors, but I think you guys get what I'm putting. You're picking up what I'm putting down. It's all about like how to go fishing for this apprenticeship that you want. So in that respect, how to put out the best bait. Then the consultation one I'm calling No Regrets, and it's called The Art of Consultation. Basically how to set expectations and manage the whole thing. It's going to be not only sharing what I do, but also for different styles of tattooing and approach, what are some things that you can do to streamline the process so that everybody is taken care of, and so that you can do enough front end work for your tattoo process so that you and your client are walking into the experience fully consenting, fully understanding what's going to go on, and really minimizing what kind of fallout might happen. Because the last thing that I like to hear from other tattoo artists is, how much they're annoyed or frustrated with their clients. That's a really awful way to feel, I think. And I think that it can sour this profession quite a bit. And it can actually run a lot of people off if they're not careful. I think that the recent things that I've gone through via COVID and having to reconnect with my community and put myself back out there and find the passion again for tattooing and how I interact with my clientele will help to formulate this seminar that I'm going to be giving. But I plan to give a lot in this seminar, and I hope to make it a very worthwhile $30. As we well know, we can spend $30 very easily on a lunch. And I'd very much so like to feed a person for a while. So, in terms of the old metaphor, teach a man to give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for the rest of his life. So that's basically what I hope to do with my time at Paradise. And, in that respect too, it's going to be a lot of giving back what was given to me, because Paradise since 2011 has really influenced my career as a tattoo artist, as an artist, as a professional. I've got to meet so many dope tattoo artists. And unlike a lot of these bigger tattoo conventions where you really just don't get a chance to meet people, this one you do. You get a lot of opportunity to hang out. You get a lot of opportunity to network, connect, really gather tools. The seminars have always, always, always been so, so influential. They've always been worth the money. So that's the kind of standard that I am going to be holding myself to with my seminar. It's a fantastic time. So if you at all want to go, I can't recommend it enough. Do it sooner than later, because the mountain resort, they do sell out quickly. They will have some things, I think, in the surrounding area if you do run out of opportunities to stay on location. But I can't say enough good things about the actual tattoo convention. It's worth your time. It makes all the difference. Anybody that I've invited to these events have been like, oh my God, this was fundamental. Like, this was very grounding. This gives me hope. I can't say enough good things. So that's the plug for Paradise. The plug for the 2 seminars that I'm going to be doing. I'll probably streamline that moving ahead in podcast land to kind of remind people in a very nice, succinct kind of commercial format about it moving ahead, just to kind of give anybody an opportunity. And Gabe, the coordinator, he's syncing up with Jake Meeks to run the event, but they had thrown out the potential of, kind of advertising partially by giving 2 portfolio reviews away and having that be available at the event as well. And I would be very interested in doing that. So maybe if you attend and you want a genuine portfolio review, you're trying to get an apprenticeship, that would be on the apprenticeship seminar side. If you would like to put yourself in for a portfolio critique, I can't think of a better space. It's very ballsy. It's going to say a lot of great things about you as a person who really wants an apprenticeship. If you show up to an event like this, put yourself up to a professional critique in the face of all of these really notable people. It's just, you never know what will happen. You never know what will be given to you. I know that it's a daunting thing to think about, but the amount of growth that you will get in such a short amount of time, I guarantee you will be exponential. Also, I can't say enough good things about the kind of people. The artists that get invited to this event are always genuine. They're always very kind. They're very open. They're sincerely people who want to help. So I can't say enough good things. As far as dropping balls, it's a funny it's a funny name, I guess. Part of my mind just goes in very stupid, childish ways for that, I have to admit. And this feeds back into what I was leading with, where I just got off of a interview with Reinventing the Tattoo podcast. I was talking with Fawn Baker of Tattoo Collecting 101, which is another amazing podcast to go check out. If you like to geek out about tattoo podcasts, I can give you a handful, but hers is one that I think is really great. Long form, you're actually watching people get tattooed. These are the kind of conversations and things that get explored while people are actually in the space of tattooing. So it's a really neat, in-depth look if you're a person who wonders about, these big tattoos and what it's like to collect a piece like that, and to hear from not only clients that are a part of these tattoo collecting experiences, but also an artist who that's the kind of work she does all the time. It's very large, it's very multi-session, very intimate, very great. I think I kept using the word symbiotic in the Reinventing the Tattoo podcast, but it is. Fawn, I think, really connects with their clients in a really great way, a very integral way, and they just have fantastic conversations that are very interesting to catch. And it's kind of like, if you're ever curious about what goes down in a tattoo session, you might maybe you want to start collecting. It's a great thing to set, I think, an expectation of what you can hope to find sometimes when you submit yourself to that kind of tattoo collecting. It's just inevitable that you're probably going to get really close to your artist because of how often you're going to see them and for how long. Not to mention, as I've said before, it's borderline torture, and when you psychologically are being broken down and physically broken down, the level of trust that you end up getting for your artist and the kind of journey that you end up going through with your artist is really significant. So I can't recommend Fawn enough. I actually just heard about, I think I had heard about it before, but I never checked it out. Chats and Tats, they just plugged that, but I just became a new follower, so in them doing that, I just learned about everything. It's actually ran by a really, really amazing tattoo artist. Let me make sure I don't brutalize his name. I'm not on the right social media space to give you this information. So Aaron Della Vedova is the main host. He's a fantastic tattoo artist. He does very spectacular, huge tattoos, gorgeous work, and he seems to have a lot of charisma. And it seems also the little clip that I saw of him interviewing Marcus Leonard, who is also a phenomenal tattoo artist. It also seems like he has what I have, that passion for gab, and so it's a very appropriate name for the podcast, Chats and Tats. I just started following them, so I am going to, continue to listen and see what I think about Aaron. But he seems like a really cool guy, and his podcast is relatively new. But I think what his style was, let's not do anything until we got this really, really, really figured out. So he's kind of like the reverse of this podcast. Like, I just started podcasting, and I figured I would figure things out as I went and show people that view of it. With Aaron, I'm going to create this beautiful, beautiful studio space where I can do everything, film and podcasting, and it looks gorgeous, and he didn't move until it got to be exactly what he was after, which I give him very high marks for, because it looks beautiful, his show. So go ahead and check that out, because that's really awesome. His tattoo studio, he's actually an owner, is Guru Tattoo in San Diego. So it's a very prominent tattoo studio in California. So I would follow all of these people and tattoo podcasts, because if you're here, you might as well go other places too and just geek out, because I would assume that if you're here, you're interested in the tattoo culture, you're interested in... I don't know why I can't articulate well today. You're interested in tattooing, apprenticeship, learning as much as you can. So yeah, that's the plugs. Lead with plugs. So as far as dropping balls, getting back. See, this is what I'm saying. This has been my whole week, has been just circle back, circle back, circle back. It's been just an onslaught of things that I really haven't been able to fully manage. So a recent thing that I hope he doesn't mind me sharing has been Rico, actually, in the pursuit of his own professional abilities and birth and opportunities, I guess would be the correct word. He decided to give up smoking marijuana in general. He's really wanted to step more and more into his love of building weaponry, and he knows that he will be limited if he doesn't completely clean himself up and make himself, a better prospect for a multi-swath of job opportunities. So he's this is like 20 years that he's been doing this, so I commend him highly. For my part, though, and I will admit this to you guys, it's been a lot. It's been chaos. Part of this podcast is me being very intimate with you guys and candid, and kind of expressing on the back end of what, everything is. I think that we all like to understand that the people that do what we want to do are people as well, and what that feels like. And part of it for me has always been relationship journeys. So my relationship over the past, basically month has been very different than the relationship I had with Rico, for basically 4 years or 4.5 years. He's been super extra. His energy levels are through the roof. Thank God he lifts weights. But podcast listeners, entry listeners, it's been too much for me to really deal with and be kind to in this realm. I've really wanted to sedate him. On top of that, our home, we have a townhome. Our home has had some incidences where if I have anything to say about what happened, has been the target of a lot of teenage shenanigans. It's been basically either ding dong dash or late night banging on our doors, or midday run up and hit our patio door and run off. But we've had local teenagers roaming our neighborhood and just getting into mischief. And unfortunately, I have somebody in my life who has had to grow up in very rough ways. I'll not elaborate because he's not here, but this is a huge trigger. This is our castle, and it's been a very hard thing to... with somebody who doesn't have his normal sedation, kind of dealing with this energy and kind of bringing him down. We finally got a rhythm back, so that's why I'm here now and I'm able to podcast. But for anybody that's been with somebody who's, shifting gears and is becoming sober and brutally sober, because he's not on anything right now, and he doesn't like alcohol, he doesn't like anything. I mean, I'm really grateful for all of this. I don't want it to sound like I'm not, but it's challenging to be with somebody who's going through the throes of sobriety and what life is like afterwards. And I think what ends up happening, I know for myself, and I want to speak for myself at this point, when I have decided to stop doing certain things that I've found to be, kind of habitual in my life and repetitive, and that I've seen that it's really not kind of yielded the kind of results that I wanted, I have, especially when it's about substance use, there's so much, I think, grief and grievance that I have with myself for how much time I spent doing certain things, and then realizing all the things that I really numbed myself to and indulged. I'm in that space right now where I need to get back into working out, and I need to make better choices with my food. I'm not abysmal, but I haven't been working out. I have continual health issues that as you get older, you have to keep scaling what you do physically. And so, when you start getting in that rhythm of really good habits again, what you end up going through, I think, is sometimes this. In working out, it's a little different because you end up feeling so good that you're like, wow, I can't even imagine my life without this. But then you also, I think, go through this kind of grief and anger with yourself that you spent so long not doing something that you now consider just your everyday. And I think that's what, if I can speak for him, Rico's kind of going through right now. Like at first he was like, man, I feel so good. I feel so good. For me, I was like, I feel so drained. I feel so drained because it's so not my norm, and I'm very happy for him, but him deciding to make a shift, that's very much so on his time schedule. It was not on my time schedule. I had to embrace it and love him and be there for him in that time, and it was at a moment in my life where a lot was happening. Not as much tattooing, though I have had some really great tattoo clients in the past month or so. It's been really awesome. I'm happy to announce that I am very, very ready to get back into tattooing fully, to open up my books. I think that I finally have, a grounding feeling for my faith in conjunction with tattooing. I think that I am not questioning anymore whether or not I'm hurting people. And I had to, after COVID and after all the things that I've experienced and coming to my faith, I really had to pause before I could overly mark people forever. And it, as I have said multiple times on the podcast, it was a comfort for me for a good 4 years now to only work with people who I had already had work priorly set up, that we had already discussed it, or just people that I had already worked with that wanted to get more work done. I've shut down so much new work, and it's been for years. So I'm fairly certain that there's going to be a big fallout of people who have probably already moved on, gotten work done by somebody else. I'm very apologetic to those people who have been wanting to get tattooed by me. My hope is that they moved on. And my other hope is that if they've waited, that they've waited for the best of me and the best of what we're going to create for each other, because I'm excited again. I'm energized, and I feel like I have gone through that kind of, I guess the Aboriginal people would call it a walkabout, a walk with faith, a walk with myself for a while. So I finally feel like that, but this last couple weeks have been like the, I guess, the final death of all of that like spiritual death and rebirth that I had to kind of come to. Which brings up something that I might make the cover of this. I'm not sure. Make the cover of this podcast, but I'm not entirely certain. But I started thinking about a lot of things. One of the things that came to mind, well, I should probably track back before I go too deep into that, but one of the things that has been on my heart lately has been just, I guess, stopping a lot of the extra noise that has come into my heart about being Christian and really getting into the Bible and reading it more and more, and then really just kind of casting out a lot of the things that I knew to be the case before. This all kind of started with my experience of a regular podcast that I like to listen to. It's a political show, so if you're not conservative, might not be your jam. If you don't like the Daily Wire, definitely not your jam. But I like to regularly catch Michael Knowles' show. Now, I will admit, Michael, you're not my number one. My number one is Matt Walsh, and it needs to be known. I do love Michael Knowles, though, and I do feel kinship with him in a big way, particularly because I think he has a really, really good artistic eye and sense. And I also find him considerably open, and I like how much he's willing to meet with people in a debate space where he's willing to have difficult conversations with people. He'll often invite Democrats onto his show to have very nice debates, or people of just different mindsets where, you know, they go back and forth and they really hack a particular point of order. What am I getting to? What's the word? A particular subject. Thank you. Sorry. But yeah, in this particular one that kind of sent my mind off into outer space, which it makes sense that it does. He interviewed Jacob Angeli. Jacob Angeli is by the mainstream media called the QAnon shaman, and he was actually held by our government for his participation in the insurrection of January 6th. And I'm sorry I'm saying that so sardonically. If you do not agree with me, that's up to you, but it wasn't an insurrection. They look a lot different, and I do honestly believe that a lot of it was incited on a reverse end to be a talking point and to be a regular thing that just keeps all of us, not just our country, but the general discussion divided. And that's what I feel. And I think it's safe enough for me to say that without party lines, without anything, just the point is to sell drama. And when it comes to what I believe the mainstream media has become, it's a lot of let's make it as dramatic and divisive as possible so we can incite people to be fearful and buy. So anyway, this interview with him was very interesting because he practices shamanistic, faith, which is, it's more ritual than it is anything, and it's more based in personal experience, which I would ask. It's about a 2-hour interview. It's very in-depth. It's very interesting. So you have Michael Knowles, who's a Catholic, which I'm not, but it's closer to what I practice than what Jacob Angeli practices. And Jacob, in being a shaman, he was talking about a lot of things that I connected to. And this is kind of the hang up that I was having between my faith and, I guess, everything else that I had explored prior to becoming Christian and really accepting Christ as my Savior, was that it kind of meant that I had to cast out everything else that I explored before. You know, part of me was like, well, I can't completely cast it out because it's what brought me here. And I do believe that in some ways. And trust me, listeners, my heart will always remain open. I believe that's the gift that God has given me, is a softer heart that is just full of yearning to understand, this curiosity, and for better or for worse, I keep living and I keep being able to ask these questions without being shut down. So my basic philosophy is that if I can't keep asking these questions, and if it really ends up pushing back at me in a way that threatens my life or takes my life, then, well, I mean, if it takes my life, it's over. But if it threatens my life, well, then maybe it's time to re-examine. But I keep being able to scale in these questions, and I keep being able to ask. So, you know, part of my questioning for my faith right now was just, you know, how do I discount all these things that I've heard? And how do I focus on the Bible? Because I had stopped listening to the Bible. I had stopped reading it religiously. I was doing my calligraphy, but what I'm finding with doing the calligraphy is that when you're transcribing things, it's very hard to actually read them while you're transcribing them. So, and it's so slow. It's like the slowest way to get through the Bible. So I'm going to be like, I don't even know how many notebooks in. I guess it depends on how succinctly I figure out how to do calligraphy. How many notebooks I'm going to be in before I, get through Genesis. I don't know, but it's not a good way to actually be in the Word every day. Let's just put it that way. And so been really struggling with what I feel is my adult attention deficit and learning how to regulate my systems and cut the fat. And part of that has been, well, how do I focus on just my spiritual journey and being Christian? Because all of these other things are calling me, and I really did feel called to this Jacob Angeli interview. And I will tell you the things that I probably most connected to him with has not been the spiritual side, though I dabbled in all those things. It's mostly what he's seen about our politics and our politics long term, country formation, motivations for why governments get formulated a certain way, certain things that are happening. All of that kind of going into what he was then labeled, which was QAnon, and, very conspiracy theorist. But it was a very good interview, and Jacob is very cogent. He is very good at being able to talk about what he's doing. And he doesn't strike me as crazy, and he doesn't strike me as somebody who doesn't know what they're speaking about. The issue is whether or not it's a path for me. And that's really where I was at. I actually sent the interview to my pastor. I wasn't able to actually circle back to my pastor and get his notes, but I ended up finding in this time of searching another podcast that set me back on track in a way that I think is really good and is right for me. Now, this might not be for anybody else, but if you want to take this walk with me, and if you want to invest in all of these things with me, it's going to take hours and hours and hours of your listening, because that's what it took me. last week, as you well know, I did a guest spot at Rapture Tattoo. Now, for anybody who saw that, it was very impromptu. Essentially, what happened is this. I love all the people at Rapture Tattoo, everyone, all of the workers, all of the tattoo artists, even the apprentices, as much as they, they're apprentices, and we all give them a hard time. They're good people too. I just love them. And what happened was I kept telling the owner, Jake, and his wife, Bree, they recently got married, so congratulations to them. But I said to them, I want to come hang out with you guys just on a friend kind of level. And they were like, yeah, like whenever you want, excuse me, I'm burpy, guys. I'm sorry. It's so live TV here. They said, you're welcome to come here anytime you want. We kept saying that and then not finding time. And when I say we, it was mostly me, because I kept saying, hey, I want to do this. And they're like, great, you can do it whenever you want. Tell us when. And then I dropped the ball. So basically what happened was they were working Battlefield Tattoo Expo. Rico and I had the day where we were going to go and like investigate this. And we had a great day. We went up there mostly just to hang out with them, to be honest. It was just trying to catch them, knowing a time where we could find them. And we also kind of, just given what we know is the case when you're working conventions, wanted to kind of do a mission trip and take them a bunch of water and, good food and things that are nourishing and that are going to give them the right amount of steam, because when you go to conventions, the food might be quote unquote good, but it's very rarely good for you. And a bottle of water sometimes can cost like $4. It's ridiculous. So, we probably hurt the convention as far as their sales and the vendors and stuff like that. But, we kind of rescued our friends. We brought them like a case of water and we brought them extra food and some fruit and some nuts and some things that were like more protein based, just so that they can have some good stuff. So we wanted to hang out, and then very impromptu, I was like, hey, I want to do a guest spot. I have to see you. Let's force this. It was kind of forced. So it was like beginning of July that we decided to do this. Maybe not even. It was probably like a week and some change into July where I decided in the very beginning of August do a guest spot. So I didn't give myself much time to advertise. I got a couple clients though, and it was freaking awesome. I didn't have a few for the beginning of the guest spot, but it was fortunate that I didn't, because so many weird things were happening. Like I kept forgetting things. Like I go and I get all my gear there, and that particular night I come home and I'm exploring a few tattoos that I'm going to have to design for the week ahead, and I realize I don't have my Apple Pencil. Now, I have designed without the use of my technology, but it's kind of outside of my normal rhythm of things. Again, this whole like interruption of energy, your flow, your system. As I said, I don't know if it's OCD so much as it is my adult ADD that needs to have a regiment. If I don't have my regiment, then I get haywired, like I get fried, and it causes a lot of, I guess like spiraling effects of where it can go into depression. It can go into a lot of things. It didn't get that bad. I just was kind of breathing through it and was like, well, you can't do everything, Amy. It's, life's not perfect. I mean, fortunately for you, you didn't leave it in a foreign place that you don't trust the people, or, you're only an hour hour and some change away from this particular shop. So worst case scenario, you know, if you had to put an extra bit of mileage on your car and pay some extra in gas, you know. But nothing was that detrimental. So I left my Apple Pencil, and then the next day I was like, oh, well, I don't have a tattoo, so I'll design at the studio and just shoot the shit with everybody. Well, I get to the studio and I forgot my iPad. I don't even know. Like, guys, I don't even know. So apparently, as all this is happening, there's a full moon. Now, I do think that there is, in terms of energy and what can happen to us, there is something to that where, you know, based on different polarities of what's happening in the world, what kind of freaky stuff is happening, the moon has something to do with it. Apparently, August is very particular with that. We have a blue moon that's going to be coming. It's a great harvesting time for vegetables and things like that. But there was a full moon while this was going on. Coincidentally enough, I had a client too that was getting a woman and a wolf howling at the full moon together, which I think was kind of funny and kismet and kind of just everything that I was experiencing was just like, what is this weird energy? In fact, when I was at the Duncannon location, which is where Bree works mostly, she was like, I don't know what's with me, man. Like, it must be the full moon. There's a lot going on, and I keep making mistakes. And I was like, same, man. Like, that's me too. And you know, we were all kind of moody. A couple artists had multiple cancellations that were happening. So everything, there was lots, not just my balls that dropped. I just think about a young man. I'm sorry, guys. I just think about a young man who's like, when are they going to drop? But yeah, like everybody else's balls were dropping too. So it was kind of, you know, in the grand way, like shifting of energy, coming to fruition, death and rebirth kind of thing. So this gets me into what I ended up diving into. Just so everybody knows, there's certain ways that I diffuse my, I guess, feeling lost, feeling aggressive, feeling depressed. A lot of it is things that it's of course art. Doing art is a great way to diffuse all of that, get that energy out. Again, if I got into working out, that would be amazing. But I've yet to be doing that ritualistically. That would help immensely. But the other thing that I do is obviously listen to podcasts, or I'll share this with you guys because I love you. I will have full-scale conversations or arguments with myself. It's not necessarily myself, but it's me and however I'm projecting another person. So say if I'm having, for instance, my aunt needed my attention during the week, but I couldn't really give it to her. So part of me, sorry, Aunt Barb, but part of me was like having these like diffusing, like borderline arguments with myself about my own ability to take time for myself because I'm juggling so much, and how I just don't have time to talk to her right now. But I would have like kind of arguments, and I would be like kind of role playing what I was going to say. And basically what I was doing was just kind of yelling myself out. But I'll do this in my car. Thank God for Bluetooth, because people, I mean, one or the other. If they think you're crazy, then they're not going to fuck with you. So that's good, right? But now with Bluetooth, people could assume that I'm having a conversation in the car, that I'm yelling at somebody. And whether it's crazy or I'm yelling at somebody in the car on Bluetooth, they're probably not going to stay around me very long driving, right? I'm still very much so driving, like very much so focused on driving. I have a great connection with talking while being active. Obviously, if you've ever been tattooed with me, you know I kind of have conversations the whole time. So that wasn't a problem. I was 100% driving fine. I was also driving a favorite car of mine, which is my dad's Sequoia. So it's like driving a boat, guys. Like if it didn't get like regrettable gas mileage, I would have a car like that. It's just the turning radius is amazing. It's a huge car. It's like floating and you're so high up, but not too high up to be like scary and need like a different kind of license. But it's just a beautiful car. It's just, or truck or SUV, I guess. It's just so great. So I was driving that. It's a wonderful vehicle. And I ended up finding, I typically like to listen to Matt Walsh, but he's only like an hour and some change. And I had an hour and some change drive, and I always listen to him on my ride back. So my ride there, I found myself to a podcast that I really do listen to sporadically, but I always have a good time when I center in on his podcast, which is James Lindsay's podcast, New Discourses. If you find yourself being really nerdy, if you are like the same as me, where you're like, what the hell is happening? Like, why is everything inverted? Why is all this stuff that I thought I knew not a thing anymore? Or if you are like, screw wokeism, like you hate it, and you don't even understand what's going on, cannot recommend James Lindsay's podcast enough. Now, he is very, very, very thorough, deeply, deeply well-educated guy, has to be a consummate reader. But he basically breaks down wokeism and connects it to a lot of things that if you want to go and check him out, please do. But in these 3 lectures that he did, it was actually, I think, college lectures that he did, it was a very big focus around occult religion, and how in the background of all of the very notable religions who are very on their face, very open, very much so putting themselves out there to be criticized. And I do think that Christianity is the number one right now that is being ardently criticized, but is the most transparent. Like I said, I was struggling to get back to my Bible, even though I know I should be reading it, I should be in the Word. I know that I have no business kind of questioning what is my faith opposed to another if I'm not willing to actually commit to what the Word of God is, and read it, and just freaking read it, and read it again if I need to, and go to Bible study with some kind of homework behind me and some knowledge. So I was really struggling to do that recently, and I guess it was just because, you know, part of this walk is like confronting your own ego and confronting your own need to have everybody understand you and have everybody see life the way you see it. And also this very hubris thing of wanting as many people as possible to see things and do things as you do it. And that's been a long-term thing with me. You know, I think it was hubris for me to say that I was cured of my codependency. Obviously, I'm not, because, you know, that's it, right? Like that ego that says, oh, a wounded bird, let me heal you. You know, like, you're struggling, I have to be your savior. Like that shit. Like it's a really problematic thing when you are a person who cares deeply. And I think that, I don't know, it's about boundaries. It's about truly being compassionate. It's about truly trying to walk as Christ walked. And that's the point of Christianity, is to embody Christ as much as you can and to observe it. And I've been dealing with this lately. And so this talk, these 3 lectures that James Lindsay talked about, it broke down wokeism. It broke down the connection to wokeism and these ancient occult religions that he starts out by basically saying, you have to believe, we have to make an agreement before I start this, that there is a whole other religion that has been behind the scenes that none of you have known about. You guys have to, before I even get into all this, you have to agree. We have to agree for each other that this is the case. And he's like, and then he explains why this is actually a possibility without getting conspiracy theorists, but he's like, this is possible because that's the nature of cults. And occult, the occult is something that is supposed to be secret faith. So I'm not going to belabor you. I'd really love if you guys check them out. Let me make sure that I'm quoting them correctly so that you can really check them out and really, really digest them at your leisure if you would like to. But again, the podcast is called New Discourses. The main guy is James Lindsay. The podcasts that I listened to were... And it was so funny because I was actually sharing them with so many people while this was going on. It was nuts. I was just like, you have to listen to this. This is so good. But I want to get the titles for you guys so that you can really check them out. I'm getting close. So the first one was he recorded it April 24th. It's about 2 hours. It's called The Negotiation of the Real. And real spelled R-E-A-L, so real as intangible. And then the next one is called The Gnostic Parasite. And that one, I have a minute left, so I can't see how long it was for you guys. But they're almost 2 hours, most of them. And then the third one is As Above, So Below, which is so weird because one of the artists that I was talking to at Rapture was Josh Hoffman, and it came up As Above, So Below. And we were like, where is that from? And I threw out, just being ignorant, I said, I think it's the Bible. But see, that's kind of what I'm talking about. That's kind of the point of some of this stuff, is that when these occult religions come in, what they do is they subvert actual religion. So for me to think that came from the Bible is very telling about how these religions work and what they do and how they catch people on to their particular faith. I mean, honestly, much like the deceiver, they take what is and they turn it on its head and corrupt. So basically, all of these things are explorations of Gnostic and Hermetic faith. And Josh actually cleared me up. He's like, no, I don't think it's in the Bible. I think it's Hermetic. I think it's like alchemic, Hermetic text. And he was right. I ended up looking it up and I was like, oh shit, you're right. So essentially, to wrap up what I was experiencing, I really do think that there are forces going on, folks, that, you really have to be a person of faith to even, I guess, follow me here. That's the agreement that I have to make with anybody who's listening to me right now, is that if you're not a person who believes in God, or who believes in faith at all, or the power of faith, then this might get lost on you. But I think that's essential to kind of recognize and understand these things. But you have to agree that there is a potential for something to be subverting your faith and to be working on you. And I think that's what the struggle was for me, is that it was hard for me to discount a lot of things that I haven't really practiced, to be honest with you, but kind of always were things that I dabbled in before and that I opened myself up to in my seeking, my searching. And I didn't want to let them go, and I didn't want to cast out anybody or anything as right or wrong as a result of it. I love colors, and I love the rainbow, and I love the concept of healing and medicine and science and our exploration of the world, and using language as you would different colors of paint, and getting very exploratory with it. I love all these things. So for me to I think that's always been a problem for me, has been to use very specific language and to limit language and to say, well, that doesn't mean this anymore, and be like, well, it did mean that. And I think that context does matter. And I want everybody to know that that's not something that has kind of completely vacated my soul, but in hearing these lectures from James Lindsay to kind of quantify what I was experiencing, I realized that part of the issue that I was having is that the struggle is that these esoteric occult religions, what they do is they seize and they corrupt. So it is very challenging for you to completely understand what they're getting at, because they use terms that we universally think are neutral, or they're nice, or they're good, and they're not. And they're actually very much so of their ritual and their belief system. And when these terms are used in such a way that they choreograph, they are setting the odds in their favor, not in the favor of what we as people who think we're using things correctly actually intend. And so it gets us in these spaces where, again, we thought that we were connecting with somebody. We thought we were using language in a correct way. We thought that everybody was, understanding each other. But that's not the case with these practitioners of Gnostic religion. The case is that they corrupt and subvert language to basically use people. And they very much so need as many people as possible to formulaically do as they do, because it enhances the ritual of what they're doing. And it actually brings forth the kind of things that they want, which is something that, I remember a long time ago, the whole The Secret and creating your own reality. It's that kind of stuff. And And the fact of the matter is that it's very evocative to think and to know that you have, it's very empowering, those kind of things. Like, I have agency. Yeah, of course, you always have agency. God gave us free will. God gave us choice. So, knowing that we have agency, it's kind of like, yeah, you should know that. But this whole kind of manipulative look about it is kind of what I was sold for a very long time. And it's about people and things that very much so is just feeding ego. And again, this narcissism that is permeating, this sociopic narcissism that is permeating all of our cultures that you see, and it's just stifling dissent. Things are becoming chaotic. All of these things are very purposeful too. And it gave me a lot of grounding. It sated me a lot. And it basically made me realize I need to go back to the Bible. I need to stop. I need to stop questioning these things and just read the Bible, because one, I haven't read it fully. So I can't speak to it. And then also I cannot keep using this language pretending or thinking that it's as neutered as I think it is, or that I'm dealing with people who understand it the same way I do. Love is a big, big, big word that gets thrown around a lot, where we all perceptively think that love is universally understood to be the same thing. It is not, let me tell you. And if you have the wherewithal and the tenacity to listen through almost 6 hours of James Lindsay lecture on this, I assure you, you'll understand why that's the case afterwards. He does such a good job of breaking it down. But I've come back to center, and I'm not that I'm going to stop seeking. Obviously, this is an apprenticeship diary. I'm going to keep giving diary entries. I'm going to keep seeking. I'm going to keep drilling myself. But some good things have happened after this 2 weeks of pause, and this 2 weeks of juggling and having balls drop and all of it, and having quirky stuff happening, and the full moon. And even when I say death and rebirth, that's a very esoteric thing that, is going to be hard for me, because, I did a whole, sorry for the squeaks because I had to adjust. I said that I wanted to stop using the word pride, because I don't have any business to have pride. It's not a good word. It's not a good thing to have, especially in the ways that people are using it right now. It's invoking some really nasty stuff. I need to have more humility and less hubris. So, I'm grounding myself in these things, but the dialectic, as James Lindsay will point out, is central to how this all takes place. And so I don't know if this is going to speak to anyone else. I don't know if this is going to resonate with anyone else. I don't know if this will matter. But a big thing to wrap up this talk, I mentioned it earlier, how I might make this the cover of the podcast, and I might. But a tattoo, my first tattoo actually that I got, was 7 snakes eating each other in a spiral. And the reason why I got that tattoo was it was a dream, and snakes are very significant. Usually if it's, I think, Jung who speaks of dreams, always equivocates snakes and dreams to sexuality. Maybe that's that. I don't know. But I looked at it as our earthbound self and knowledge and this death and rebirth kind of thing. But my spiral of snakes eating each other they get bigger and bigger and bigger as they go. There's 7 of them. And they start with a snake kind of looking at the viewer. And then it's all these snakes eating each other in a spiral. Excuse me, listeners. Excuse me. Eating each other in a spiral, and the last one goes into me. And there were 7 snakes that I could perceptively see in the dream. It was a very vivid dream, and it got me to, it's not the best tattoo. I've spoken about it before in the podcast, but it's been worked on by 3 different people, which I think is kind of interesting if we're, doing the numerology thing, which I know is also new agey and probably not good. But I do like 3s because you have the Trinity, and then 7. 7 is so big. 7 virtues, 7 sins. 7 is very big. And I remember, I think it was something that I read in Joseph Campbell, though I cannot be certain if it was him, but I think I remember him saying that you had to fall 7 times before grace. And that stuck with me. And when I had this dream and when I dissected it all, I thought about it and I was like, well, snakes eating each other, it's about like digestion and growing and becoming bigger and more. And it was in a spiral, and spirals have symbolically meant life and continuation, and it going into me just like kind of suggesting that like this continues, but we don't know how far it continues. And, but there were 7, and I remember that he said that, and that sticking out to me, but I couldn't really establish, at least for a long time, I never really looked into it. I think that I believed Joseph Campbell because he's so much kind of like James Lindsay, where he dips into all these different philosophies, theologies, mythos, and pulls out the psychological aspects of them and does really, really deep dive conversations about them. The Power of Myth, Hero with 1,000 Faces. These are books or talks that you should definitely look up. I believe Power of Myth is on YouTube if you want to check it out. And Rick and Morty actually did a little fun nod to Joseph Campbell that I think was cool too. Let you explore whatever you'd like to within that, and get as nerdy as you'd like. But I love Joseph Campbell. I think he's great at story analysis and kind of showing people throughout history how the human condition has been. And it's all kind of cool to me. But anyway, I have this tattoo. 3 people worked on it. And I didn't know where that concept came from, but I do now because I actually looked it up. And I am so pleased to know that unlike the Hermetic thing that came my way that Josh and I were talking about, it's actually biblical. What was talked about with Joseph Campbell. It's actually in Proverbs, and it's Proverbs 24:16. For a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. So that's very potent. And to understand that in the Bible, that's what that was sourced from. And I didn't even know. All of these esoteric, all this walk with all these things, all this stuff, all this extra. And if you do listen to the Jacob Angeli, you'll feel a lot of like intensity to the way he speaks. And you'll find yourself really getting attached to what he's saying, very much so. And it's this very potent, intense energy that he's putting forth as he's speaking. I still really like him, and I still think he is a good agent. I do think that he is a good person. However, you reckon what you're doing is you kind of feel him. You feel this kinship with him if you've at all kind of dipped your toes in the same path as he and I kind of have. And if you have that questioning heart, you'll really understand where he's coming from and what he's talking about. He quotes the Bible a lot too. Now, he had 10 months in solitary confinement with the Bible, so he might have read it fully. And I don't think he discounts it. I think he actually counts everything, but has this very personal attachment to it that is good, because faith is a personal walk. But I also think that in being brought back, that there's this thing that he's doing that I recognize most now, which is I have to save the world. You know, I have to save the world. The world is bleeding out. I have to save it. And when you are a Christian and when you walk with Christ, you realize that none of that is necessary. My friend Neil, who actually went under knee surgery recently, so I went to visit him the other day, but he gave me this beautiful placard. It's I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to attempt to quote it, but it says, "Good morning. This is God. I'm at the helm here. All of your problems I have taken care of for you. I do not need your help." And that's basically it when you accept Christ as your Savior, is that you truly accept that things are going to be okay. That you become a part of everything, and you become a part of something bigger than yourself. You stop feeling all this need to fix it, but rather to be grateful for it. Be grateful for everything that you have. And it's really powerful. And I've found this before, like in dealing with people where they're talking so much about doing good things in the world, but the way that they see it is so awful. You know, they see it as broken, they see it as demolished, they see it as imperfect, and you know, it's up to all of us to make it more perfect, rather than what I've always striven to be, which is just curious and so romanced, I guess, by all that's around me, and just wanting to be a part of it more, and I guess play with it more and not criticize it so much, but just to observe and have it be what it is and find it unbelievably beautiful, and to participate in that beauty as much as I can in a way that I find integral, I think is non-harmful as possible, and something that when it's viewed and when it's belayed to another person, uplifts them and gives that experience to them, so that they're not running around constantly feeling panicked all the time and feeling so much pressure to fix everything, and to basically get to a point where inevitably you just hit a wall, man, of what you can actually do yourself. You end up getting really frustrated with people around you because they might not see it as you see it. They might not be as invoked as you are to this action. You become an activist. You become this person who's screaming at people to be kind, to do the right thing. And meanwhile, you're like yelling at people. You're like attacking them with your agenda. And I think there's been moments like that for me. They're more in my very intimate, like, relationship space. I mean, I'm hacking that right now of just trying to be a partner to, learn to yield, to learn to work with someone, to learn to really love and walk the walk of love, which is day by day, breathing in and out, taking things as they come, juggling, sometimes dropping the ball, but like that's really where I've been recently. Sorry guys if my talk had gotten a little bit. I was looking in another direction. I wasn't looking at my microphone, so hopefully that still came through. But yeah, I've come back. I'm going to keep doing calligraphy. Something to announce that's going on right now that maybe I can share with you guys in a very fun way is that I'm watching my parents' house for them right now. They, they're going to be gone for a minute. And they have chickens, and they have this whole house that is ordered completely around how they live their life, which is very odd, too. It's a very weird shift for me and Rico to be here. And so we're kind of out of our element a little bit, and that's going to be interesting. But I'm really passionate about not losing too much ground in what my pursuits are. I'm hoping to, like I said, really reach out to some people who have been waiting for a while for tattoos and getting some tattoo work on the book, moving into the fall. It's going to be a beautiful time for the fall to start getting some tattoo work in, busy time, funness, and start being excited again. So I guess after all of that may or may not have come out very well, and succinctly, I feel great. It's been great. I think I've picked up the balls that matter again, and I have new energy. And unlike, I guess to really wrap it up, there's a symbol within these esoteric faiths of the snake eating its own tail, and the Ouroboros, I don't know how you say it, but I think that's how you say it. But that was a symbol of mine for a while, and it's not a good symbol anymore. I don't mind snakes eating each other and becoming bigger and spiraling into greater growth and more life, but to eat oneself over and over and over again into nauseum and circular logic, all that is, as a book that I had read would say, is it's like having roller skates on an octopus. It makes a lot of movement, but it doesn't go anywhere. And that's the Ouroboros. And I think if anybody listens to this and they identify with that symbol, really ask yourself where you're at, because I've been lost for a very long time, and I have no problem admitting that. And I'm sure I'm going to get lost again. We tend to go off the path and then come back on as time goes on, but I've been lost for a very long time, and I think that's why. It's because it was just circular. I was doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, and keep, hitting familiar walls and not progressing. So I changed my Twitter feed, which was, I actually made a post about it. It was pretty cool. And I guess that's where I'll wrap it up. Just in case if you don't follow me on Twitter, this podcast does have a Twitter, by the way, or, account, which is now X, by the way. It's not Twitter, it's X. And I'm hoping that I can get my account reestablished, because I am really freaking upset about the fact that my account cannot get, it will not get unlocked. It doesn't matter how much, Elon Musk has taken over. Crap's sake, it's not even coming up now. It was Apprenticeship 2. Or Apprenticeships. Apprentice. Maybe it's Apprentice 2. I wanted to get it up, so Apprentice 2. I don't know. Sorry. Such a bad... Yeah, we're not gonna accept that. Sorry, everybody, for that interruption. I know this is kind of a bad way to end. Don't even worry about it, because I haven't been able to log on to the Apprenticeship Diaries X space for a while. But my X account for me as a tattoo artist is ANICHOLLS tattoo, and that's my one as a personal, I guess, an artist one. But that's the one that I changed my bio on. And I made a whole post about it, but basically it was, just so everybody knows, human, artist, creative, connector, passionate being, lover, the snake who eats its own tail. And it's changed because after listening to this podcast, I was very much so moved to change that, because I don't want to be lost anymore. And I don't want the implication that I'm lost anymore. And I don't want people to inadvertently think that I am participating in something that I'm not. You know, when you are a person who does art or who is a creative for a living, it is so vital to know who you're participating in things with, because that whole, like, you know, pushing your reality into focus and creating and constructing reality, that is a thing. It's not that that's a lie. It's just that you don't want to be manipulated into that, and you don't want to manipulate others, or at least I don't. I think that's the integral way to go about it, is that I'm looking to do cool shit with cool people. I want this to be something that is balanced and where everybody's coming at it from a place of integral action. Everybody is seeing each other and loving each other and really getting it. And it's not gonna be as clean as these other more ritualized things are, but it will be more integral, and it will be more human, and I think real. And that's the biggest thing, real. So my bio changed too, and I will end with this: human, artist, creative, connector, passionate being, lover, seeker of truth. So I ask all of you in the week ahead and moving forward, be a seeker of truth. I think that's the reason why I'm here. I think, truth be told, that is what I've always yearned for, is the truth. I've always wanted that. So it's a good vibe, not to use too many of the yogi, holistic, whatever, woo-woo-y kind of talk, or new agey kind of thing. But seek truth. And I do think that, at least for me, the starting point is the Bible. And I'm going to stay there for a while. And I'll, moving ahead, tell you guys what I find. Certainly going to keep being open about that. I wish you all a very, very good week. Blessings all around. Thank you for this time. This has been almost an hour and a half, so I super appreciate you. Hopefully, this has given you a lot to digest. I know I gave you a lot of referrals and a lot to chew on, so don't get overwhelmed. Take it little by little, and definitely decide whether or not it's a ball you want to pick up. But it was for me, and I'm going to go back to juggling now. Bye, listeners. Love you all.
Thanks for listening. You can find the Apprenticeship Diaries on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our IG is the_apprenticeship_diary. If you would like to offer constructive criticism or an interview, drop us an email at theapprenticeshipdiaries@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from our listeners.